Hi guys. I hope you're doing well. Today I actually wanted to talk about something that it's honestly been on my mind for a really long time, but I never had not necessarily the guts, but I just never talked about it. I don't know why, like it never came up until recently. And so today we are going to talk about imposter syndrome. Honestly, the first time I ever heard this term was last semester, and I will never forget it. I was sitting down and I was doing homework, and a teacher approached me talking about an event that they were doing. The whole purpose of the event was students coming together and talking about imposter syndrome and how they felt. And I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but I was sitting outside listening to what these people had to say. Honestly, it hit me like a ton of bricks that I have dealt with imposter syndrome in my life. I have gone through it, and I never had a term or a word to describe how I was feeling, but now I did, and it was imposter syndrome. And it's basically this idea of feeling like you don't belong in a space. Like, despite all your accomplishments, all the important places you're able to be in, you still feel like you're a fraud, like you're not supposed to be there. And I think for a good portion of my life, I constantly have this feeling of like I'm not supposed to be here, or I don't fit in. And hearing all these people, like I heard a lot of these kids, and they had so many things they were doing. I mean, people who were engineers, who were doing all this stuff, and to hear them say that they felt like imposters, it just did something to me. I feel like growing up being African American, my whole life I was told that I don't belong, like you're not supposed to be in this space. And whether it was a teacher making a sly comment at me, or me going to work and somebody saying something to me, like I always felt like I didn't belong, and I had to prove myself and prove my worth. And despite me trying to prove it, it never felt like I could prove myself. And even in high school, like I ended up going to a magnet school, and being in that space, I always felt like I was an imposter, a fraud. I felt like I wasn't supposed to be in that place, like I was never going to fit up to this expectation. I was never going to be good enough. I was never going to be smart enough. And it did a number on me. It really did, because for so long I always felt like I never belonged in the spaces I was put in, whether that was honor classes or, you know, like a promotion at work or whatever. I always felt like, why me? Like I'm just a nobody, like I don't deserve to be here. And no matter how many times people would tell me, no, you belong here, and it just never registered. And so hearing these kids talk about their experiences, and despite all these things they still feel like a fraud, it made me realize something. It made me realize that all of us are feeling this way. A lot of people feel this imposter syndrome, this idea that I'm not good enough, I'm a fraud. And the scary part is when you're sitting there, you feel like, oh my gosh, if I think I'm a fraud, everybody around me thinks I'm a fraud. And I don't know, it's so crazy to me. And I honestly can wholeheartedly say that, like, you deserve to be in that space. You got there with hard work. You deserve to be there. You deserve to be in that classroom. You deserve to be in those spaces. Like, when you're in those spaces, you feel like insignificant, so you never take the leap and be heard. You always kind of sit in the corner because you're like, I don't deserve to be here. But you do deserve to be there. There's a reason why you're there. And if you constantly feel this feeling of feeling like a fraud, you'll never do what you're meant to do. You'll never accomplish what you were set out to accomplish. The reason you're in those spaces is because you earned your way in those spaces, and they need voices like you. But if you're so caught up in looking at yourself as a fraud, you'll never be able to utilize those spaces and actually change them and make that change. For so long, I've always felt like in certain areas, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not this. Like, even the other day when I was at school, I was sitting in this classroom, and it was like everybody was just like getting the answers. Everybody was just like, they felt comfortable in that space because they've been told that I belong in this space. And it's like, for me, I was sitting there and I was just like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. Like, why am I here? Why am I in this college class? Like, do I even deserve to be here? And I just felt so like insecure. I felt like I didn't belong there. I didn't deserve to be there. I just felt so insecure. And I had to remind myself that no, you belong there. Even being able to sit in that college classroom and take that class is an accomplishment in itself. And that although it may take me a little bit to get to that understanding of whatever we're learning, I'm still gonna get there. And even with YouTube, I constantly have to remind myself, like, sometimes I watch all these YouTubers and they're just talking so eloquently and they're just doing everything perfectly and they're so successful at it. And it's like, I sit here sometimes, I'm like, what am I even saying? Am I a fraud? Should I not be doing this? Am I not good enough? And I constantly have to remind myself that you deserve to be here. There's a reason why you're doing this. And despite what people may say, and despite how I may feel, at the end of the day, I deserve to be there. And I don't know who's listening to this. I don't know if you've ever felt this feeling of feeling like an imposter, but I'm here to tell you that you deserve to be in that space. And you gotta remind yourself, no matter how much of a fraud you feel like, there's a lot of people that in those spaces, they don't belong there, but they got there. So how much more you who deserves to be in that space? And the crazy part about it is so many of us feel this universal feeling of feeling like we're imposters, of feeling like we're frauds in our own lives and our own stories. But the thing is, if we're all feeling like frauds, we all feel like we don't belong, it's kind of comforting to know that everybody feels this way. And the difference between somebody who is successful and somebody who is not successful is this idea of not letting it overtake you. You can feel like an imposter, you can feel like a fraud, but you still need to go for your goals and your dreams. That's what makes you successful. That's what makes you stand out. It's not because you're better than anybody. It's simply this idea, I'm not gonna let this idea of feeling insecure or feeling like I'm not good enough stop me from doing what I need to do and being in the spaces I need to be in. But that's just how I've been feeling recently. Hearing these people talk, like it was last semester, but I'm still like thinking about it because even like last week and the weeks before, like I've always constantly felt this feeling. I was like, I don't know if anybody feels this way, but I just feel like I don't belong. I've been told for so long that I just don't belong in these spaces, that I'm not good enough. The fear that somebody else might see that and look at me and be like, yeah, you don't deserve to be here scares me, but I do belong here. This is simply a mindset. You deserve to be in those spaces. You got this. I love you guys. Stay inspired.